Call the meeting to order. Beth, please call the roll.
Mr. Bodie?
Here.
Mrs. Gebhardt?
Here.
Mr. Gousset?
Here.
Mrs. Matney?
Here.
Ms. Wassmuth?
Here. Okay, let's do the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, first on the agenda is minutes. Do I have a motion to approve minutes?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, Beth, please call the roll.
Mr. Bodie?
Aye.
Mrs. Gebhardt?
Aye.
Mr. Gousset?
Aye.
Mrs. Matney?
Aye.
Ms. Wassmuth?
Aye.
In recognition of guests and hearing of the public, do we have anyone from the public here to speak today? Please state your names and your address, if you don't mind.
Hello, I'm Sophia Zaber-Ramsey, and I live at 1339 Wanda Road.
And my name is Rowan Muir, and I live at 127 Lincoln Road. Good evening. My name is Rowan Muir, and I'm a sophomore.
And I'm Sophia Zaber-Ramsey, and I'm also a sophomore. We're student leaders at the Bobcat Anti-Racism Collective, and we're grateful to be in a school that offers clubs like BARC, and we want to share our support for continuing honesty in education. BARC is a group composed of student leaders that are actively trying to combat racism and raise awareness of our past or ongoing issues, mainly concerning race. We have hosted movie nights, general meetings, have provided resources to combat racism, and more. It is valuable to learn about the past in order to correct and acknowledge our previous mistakes. Ignoring issues such as racism does not make it go away. There are House bills being proposed across the country, including Ohio, to limit honesty in education and the discussion of divisive concepts.
We are glad that our school does its best to promote diversity and valuable discussions, even about hard things at times, which helps us grow as critical thinkers. We hope this continues because it unites our districts and community. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other members of the public here to speak? Okay, moving on. Auditor of State Award.
So tonight, we have a commendation in recognition of the district's Auditor of State Award, Representative Allison Rousseau, Ohio House Representative, Democrat, Upper Arlington and Grandview. In her place tonight is Victoria Rikacheski. And so if you wouldn't mind coming to the podium, and as you do, first off, welcome on behalf of the Board of Education in Grandview. I also wanted to just thank you. So this is my 9th year, believe it or not, and serving as superintendent in such a privileged position. And it is the first year that I have ever gotten a single letter, let alone 2, from a state representative. So please extend our heartfelt thank you for her kind letters in support of Grandview Heights Schools.
Absolutely. I'm so glad to hear that. And apologies if turning my back to all you great people. Leah Russo is, because of redistricting that happened last year, is new to representing Grandview Heights, but I know she's very excited for the opportunity to represent this wonderful community and really wants to be engaged. And so I'm so glad to hear that the outreach from the office has been well received, and she's very much looking forward to doing that. Usually she would be here herself, but unfortunately it was a rather hectic day at the State House today. Session ran a little long and she wasn't able to join us, but asked if I could come in her stead, and she does plan to hopefully return soon and provide you all with additional updates about what's going on at the State House and how that's going to affect the district and the community, in particular the school funding that's going to be passing through the state budget here shortly. But today our purpose was really to honor and acknowledge the incredible accomplishment of the district in receiving the Auditor of State Award. Every year, the Grandview Heights school system going through this audit. This is actually, I read on your website, the 8th year in a row that Grandview Heights School District has received this award. So what a tremendous accomplishment, something that everyone should be proud of for your commitment to fiscal transparency and for remaining accountable to and proper stewards of taxpayer dollars. So she just really wanted to come here and commend you for that, and especially congratulations to Treasurer Beth Collier for her leadership on that, and wanted to make sure that she found the time to acknowledge all all of the hard work that you've put in, so.
Thank you so much for being here. We really appreciate it. And it's very, very much a team effort. So we would not have gotten those awards if it wasn't for the support of the board, the finance committee, the entire administrative team, and probably as important as anybody, our building secretaries. They are kind of the watchdogs in each building that make sure the procedures are followed and the processes are followed, and all of that culminates in a positive audit. So really appreciate and feel very, very lucky to be on the team that I'm on and be part of that. So thank you so much for being here.
I'll just pass along a quick commendation from the State House and congratulations. Yes.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
It can't go without saying, though, for all of the thanks that Beth gave to everybody else, this truly would not happen if not for Beth herself, and we are all very, very appreciative of everything you do.
Thank you.
You have a great treasure in this district. All right, we'll move on to the next
Yes,
presentation.
so at this time, I would like for Angela Olam to come to the podium.
Hello. I would like to invite Brian Pettit to stand next to me.
Yes, please.
So Brian Pettit is the Columbus Symphony Orchestra Elementary Music Educator of the Year. This is Leah. I think Natalie's in the back there somewhere. I'd just like to take a minute and read. I already wrote it. I'd like to read Brian's nomination letter. I've had the privilege to lead Brian, who is a dedicated, creative, student-centered music teacher who cares deeply for his students, colleagues, and the Grandview community. Mr. Pettit has a strong belief in music pedagogy and a vision for what his students should know and be able to do by the end of their elementary experience. He's written a spiral curriculum that builds in complexity through the grade levels. His daily lessons are broken down to skills that build upon foundation and understanding of music concepts as students play instruments, sing songs, dance, and play games. He uses children's literature to bring cultural awareness and understanding to various forms of music. Brian and his special area colleagues have had cultural evenings at Stevenson that bring together the Latin culture, music, movement, and language. Mr. Pettit has always met every new situation with a positive and creative mindset. When he was told he would have to travel to the middle school to teach a music section, he accepted the challenge by writing a grant for guitars. He developed the course and taught the students how to play. Although he is back solely at the elementary school, his guitar course is still being taught. During the pandemic, he created the same enthusiasm and rich experience for his students as if they were in his classroom. He learned to use and integrate multiple technology platforms to support students and families in his virtual classroom, and parents and students looked forward to music every day during the pandemic. Brian builds relationships with students and colleagues and parents. He has offered to work with our students who are nonverbal in his free time to bring more music into their days. He has been part of behavior modification plans for students who may struggle in the classroom, but they thrive in music. And he has spent time with students who just want to share their musical talents with him. He does private trumpet lessons for many of his former students, and he encourages all students to follow their dreams and try new things. He supports his colleagues by helping develop the master schedule. He covers extra classes when we're short with subs. He brings treats on Fridays, and he's always there to listen, encourage, and support. Brian also supports the community by participating in school events, creating music nights for families to share with loved ones, and opening its classroom doors. Brian Pettit is an exemplary teacher, a natural leader, and an incredibly kind human being. He's someone I admire, and I'm thankful that my students have had the privilege to have Mr. Pettit as their music teacher.
You want to say anything? You're welcome to.
Don't feel
It's just a deep pleasure being here in Grandview and being able to work with, I see some former students there and around, and just thanks for having me and for helping to form me and my family, and for this to be a place that we can share the world with so many kids and how music could really be such a gateway to new experiences, new feelings, new opportunities. So thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
At this time, I'd like Lisa Sullivan to come to the podium along with Connie Fanau, Barb McCauley, and Linda Teach.
Yeah, probably. Well, I decided that the most important voices at Stevenson needed to be heard with their thoughts of these three amazing educators. And plus, I'm probably going to start crying. So, let me see. Uh-oh. Here we go. Okay.
What is special about Mrs. Pond?
That she's really nice. That she has been in my life since first grade, and I don't want her to leave. She's really nice. She is so special because she's amazing, and also a lot of people go to her to help me, and she's really good at her job.
And what should she do when she retires?
I go to the lodge. She lives by her dream house. Go on a vacation. Eat avocados from Mexico.
What is special about Mrs. McCauley?
I think what is special about Mrs. McCauley, how nice she is. But the fact that she sometimes lets us have 2 recesses. If we something up that's not hers, she gives us candy. It's kind of fun. That she helps us every day, and what's special is about her that she's big-hearted.
And what should she do when she retires?
She should live a good life and she should go to Hawaii with her husband.
Oh, there you go.
She wants to take vacation. You should take a vacation off, like to Mexico or the Bahamas. She should go to a jungle and live in a treehouse with the jaguars and parrots.
Special about Mrs. Teach?
She's special because she's nice and is always willing to help. She's nice, she's the teacher in the world. She's very nice. She's very, very nice, and she really cares about all her students, and she is just a really, really nice teacher.
And what should she do when she retires?
Be a substitute. Later, maybe she should teach again because she's just a really, really good teacher. I think she should take a little break and be a substitute.
They all want you back.
All right.
So nice.
So I do have a few words to say, if I can get through them. I had to write some things down. On a personal note, I just want to say thank you to these amazing women. A friend once told me that love is an intervention, and it has become a motto that I live by. These three exemplify that motto. Thank you for loving our students, families, and colleagues through all the hard things. Thank you for your dedication. Our students feel successful, loved, and valued because of the work that you do. Thank you for your patience and your support of me especially on those days where I stumble and fumble to try to get through. You have played such important roles in my journey at Stevenson, and I am grateful that I had the opportunity to play a small part in yours. I wish you relaxation, joy, and time to finally focus on yourselves. Stevenson will always be your home, and we will always be here for you. We love you, and we will miss you, and we wish you nothing but the best.
Thank you so much.
By the way, you're welcome to say a few words if any of you would like.
I guess I'm gonna come back and substitute.
We hope you do. I did want to just say, we're getting all of them and William, which we're going to get to you here in just a second, a small gift. And basically it says, when gentle breezes blow and you hear these wind chimes play, take a moment to remember the many, many young lives you have touched throughout your teaching days. With great appreciation and affection, Grandview Heights Schools. So congratulations. Well deserved.
Can we just keep our... There's more. Okay.
All right. Well, for those of you that don't know me, I'm Stephanie Duran. I'm the school counselor at Stevenson, and I have recruited your favorite people, Joe Liptrap and Paula Oswald, to help me, who are second grade teachers, help me recite a poem. So this is called The End of Careers for Three Musketeers. We're going to be good. All right. 3 great teachers gave Stevenson over 100 teaching years. They're ready and happily moving on, so please hold back your tears. Connie Fano showed up here in 1993. Her tireless work with all kids' needs make her a special legacy. Her days ahead under Florida skies will add fun to her bio and will bring her favorite Riesling wine when we visit from Ohio.
All right, Stevenson really won the prize. when we got Lynn to teach. She's always thinking one step ahead, and there's no child she cannot reach. Her retirement days will surely be filled with lots of hard-earned pleasure, a fine white wine, a cruise or two, and grandkid time, her most loved treasure.
Barb McCauley spends classroom time by mixing skills and fun. It's only been 34 years. Are you sure you're really done? Barbie's planning more family days and work in those garden beds. And she seriously thinks she's going to get to celebrate the Cincinnati Reds.
So now it's time to say goodbye to these, our teaching friends. Stop by and see us anytime. Our friendship never ends. That's it.
They said they were right. We should have taken the picture first. Okay, can we take a picture real quick? Are we okay with this? Are we sure? Okay. There's lots of emojis.
Like a little bit.
Get in here.
He is. Yes. He's still yelling at them. He's yelling a little bit.
It is with great pleasure today that I'm here to speak with you about William Emergis. I do not have a poem, unfortunately. I am just not that creative. Who has spent the last 5 years as a math teacher at the high school. In this relatively short time, William has made an enormous impact on the lives of countless students and on the high school community as a whole. What makes William's story even more special is that all 5 of his children attended Grandview Heights High School as well. This speaks volumes about his commitment to education and to the community. Throughout his time at Grandview Heights High School, William has been an integral part of the school and the surrounding area. He has been involved in countless activities, organized events, and has been a beloved and respected member of our community. His dedication and commitment to education has been unwavering, and he has always gone above and beyond to ensure that every one of his students receives the best possible education. In addition to his work as a teacher, William has also had an interesting and varied career outside of education. He began his professional life in the business world, but eventually found his true calling in the classroom, and we sure are glad that he did. His unique perspective and personality brought application to his math lessons and a connection in his conversations. As William prepares to move on from Grandview Heights High School, it is clear that he will be greatly missed by all of his students, all of the colleagues, and community members alike. His passion for teaching and his dedication to his students have been an inspiration to all who have had the privilege of knowing him. So to William we say, thank you. Thank you for the 5 years of service to Grandview Heights High School, your tireless dedication and your unwavering commitment to the students, the community. We wish you all the very best in your future endeavors and know that you will continue to make a positive impact on everything that you touch. William, you make us all better. You truly are a remarkable person. And I always enjoy our conversations, not just about education, but about being a dad. So with that, I'd like for you to come on up to the podium. And I also have a wind chime for you as a small token of our appreciation for your service. And then if you'd like to say a few words as well.
I will. Thank you. Thank you.
You bet.
I did not prepare any remarks, but I will say thank you to the leadership of our district. Thank you to the parents and community members of our district, but most of all, what wonderful children we've had the opportunity to teach. That made my life very easy. And also, I should point out that both Barb and Linda taught my children. Thank you for that, too. Excellent. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Can we get a picture with your family?
All right, family.
4 or 5 of you. That's great.
4 or 5 children. That's great. Couldn't get them all.
4 or 5's pretty good.
You want to get in there?
80%. Yeah, 80%.
Do you care if I get in there?
Sure.
Just briefly say, my kids have only had the pleasure of having 2 of the people celebrated today, but Brian and Barb. But I know between their experience and word of mouth, like this is, well, 1, congratulations, Brian. That's amazing, and there is no one more deserving of it than you. I'm so impressed by everything you do, and I was so sad when my kids left Stevenson to leave you because you're an amazing music teacher. And Barb and everybody else that my kids haven't had, I know through word of mouth, just how valued you are. And like, I'm a weepy person already, so I don't even know many of you that well, but like, I just know what a loss this is, and I wish you guys the best moving forward, so. Anyway. All right, I know, I already grabbed one. Thank you all.
Does anyone have any more comments? Are we good? Okay. At this time, I'd like to invite Start Talking Grandview to present the Advocate Award presentation. And Ms. Head is doing it on behalf of Start Talking Grandview.
Evidently, I'm a first-round draft pick. Allison Gessner-Rooney could not be with us this evening and asked me to read this on her behalf. So these are Allison's words on behalf of Start Talking Grandview. Good evening. Thank you for having Start Talking Grandview tonight. STG is committed to raising informed and respectful conversations around substance use and misuse and its impact on individuals, families, and our community. We are fortunate to live in a community that cares. We are fortunate for the partnership with Grandview Heights Schools. This year, Louis Essig, a graduate, shared his addiction and recovery story with the students in the high school biology classes. Start Talking Grandview provided seniors and parents with tips on how to enjoy prom safely and substance-free. And during Alcohol and Drug Fact Week, 644 students across our middle school and high schools submitted quizzes that were filled with facts, myths around the risks of marijuana, vaping, gambling, and more. Tonight, Start Talking Grandview is here to present its third annual Prevention Advocate Award. This award is to recognize a staff or community member who engages with students and youth in ways that promote positive mental health, and in so doing promotes prevention of substance misuse. This year's Start Talking Grandview Senior Scholarship recipient is here to join in the presentation. Mia Smith. Mia, can you join me? Mia was selected for the scholarship, Start Talking Grandview Scholarship this year, as she has demonstrated her own commitment to living a healthy lifestyle that demonstrates that substance-free can be fun. And she shares Start Talking Grandview's commitment to educating people about the impacts that substance misuse can have on people and their loved ones. Tonight, Mia is actually going to present the Start Talking Grandview Prevention Advocate Award. This is an award that is driven by student input and voted on by the board. Mia, I turn it over to you.
Thank you. I'm Mia Smith, and I have a little thing to read. So, first off, I have a question. Would I be able to spin this around to face the audience or not? Is that okay?
Sure.
Okay, thank you. Okay. I would like to start by thanking Allison Rooney and the Start Talking Grandview team for the scholarship and the opportunity to help spread the Start Talking Grandview message. As someone who has experienced firsthand the effects of substance misuse on a family, the importance of a program like Start Talking Grandview is very crucial. Additionally, I want to bring attention to the wonderful Mark Alter for being not only a great teacher, but a great mentor and an incredible person. He has always supported my creativity and my being, in addition to me as a student. Mr. Alter creates an environment that allows students to feel comfortable as their true selves in his classroom. The students at Grandview that don't fit in with the cool kids, or the students that don't have safe homes, those students, they have found refuge in his classroom. Mr. Alter ensures student safety and well-being before academics, which is so crucial in high school these days. The most significant lesson I learned from him was to value my own thought processes and continue to learn from myself. Because Mr. Alter creates a safe space for his students and he truly cares about each individual person, I believe that he has done so much for our community and Start Talking Grandview. He supports students regardless of their identity, character, or being. Mr. Alter inspires me and other students daily, and I'm grateful for the opportunity to thank him here tonight.
Mr. Alter?
You want to say a few words, Mr. Alter?
I don't even know what to say. I'm not a crier, but now I'm a crier. This means so much. I'm going to echo what we heard from my colleagues. I am so grateful to be able to come here every day and work with students like Mia and to have the support of the district. The things that I am allowed to do here would not happen anywhere else. And I love the work I do and that I'm able to do, and I'm deeply appreciative. So thank you so much.
Keep it up, keep it up.
When you hear words like that spoken by Mia about a teacher, like as a parent, you couldn't hear anything better than that about a teacher, so congrats.
You make us all better, Mark, and I mean that from the bottom of my heart. And I think there's a lesson for everyone in terms of Mia's words around investing and making everyone feel welcomed and a sense of belonging first. and you do that as well as anybody I've ever met.
Thank you for providing the space to do that.
Well, thank you.
Kids come first.
Thank you. Last time we had a picture, we weren't here.
We will not speak of it.
Hey, get in here.
Yes, we have that.
Mrs. Olam, you have a short presentation.
Sure. Dyslexia, a little short.
Okay, thanks. This is an important presentation, so it will be short, but it's important. Okay, so I've spoke to you many times before about the dyslexia law, but I think I've just kind of glazed over it. So tonight, I'm going to not go in super details, but I'm going to give you just a little bit more information. So the dyslexia law has 3 components that we need to think about. You need a dyslexia committee, you need PD, a teacher certification process and screening, and then curriculum resources. So the dyslexia committee has met all year. It's 15 teachers with our reading specialists. We rewrote our balanced literacy framework. It's now a structured literacy framework, which will soon be on the website. We've looked at assessments, and we are now looking at curriculum. Training. By the end of 2023, all K through 3 teachers needed to have 18 hours of professional development. That is complete. We have 4 additional staff members getting advanced training in something called letters. I know it's spelled wrong, and that seems odd to me that it's dyslexia work, but that is how it's spelled, letters. We have Allison Kokura is a reading specialist who has undergone OG certification at level 1, OG certification at level 2, and now is going to become an OG supervisor. It's 100 more hours of practicum work, but she is going to undertake that, and then she will be a trainer here, and we won't have to send anyone to be trained. So we've invested in our own staff, and now she'll be able to help all of us stay on top of things. By the end of 2025, we need to have all intervention specialists, kindergarten through 12th grade, trained. We have 10 of 13 already trained, so we're in good shape. Dyslexia screeners. I spoke to you earlier, maybe you remember there weren't that many options, so we have chosen the Acadience screener. It is nationally normed. It's based on Dibbles, so if you've heard that name before, Dibbles has been around a long time. Acadience just took lots of pieces from Dibbles and then added a technology component to it. So it provides a universal screener. It detects when kids need support, then it has a diagnostic to dig in, like what kind of support do they actually need. Then we can progress monitor, and it all fits into our MTSS model. So we'll be adopting Acadience as a new universal screener. You've heard me say structured literacy. You may have heard guided reading groups before. So just when you think about structured literacy, the components of it are foundational skills. That's the phonics, phonemic awareness pieces. Higher level literacy, that's your comprehension skills, and then writing. We've been doing foundational reading skills for a while here, so that our curriculum for that is Haggerty and Foundations. But our biggest shift has been to decodable readers in kindergarten and 1st grade. Because everyone in Ohio is shifting to decodable readers, the resources out there are good. They match what phonics instruction we've taught, but they're not very exciting, and our kids are used to rich text. So we went on a hunt, and we found geodes. So geodes are decodable books. They are 80% decodable. So almost all the words in them are decodable. And they align to our Foundations program. So whatever phonics instruction we're teaching, the book aligns to it. But the great thing about these decodable books is they aren't boring. They actually look, a lot of the decodable books are paper, they're very thin, they're a couple pages. These are real books that kids can get their hands on. They focus on building background knowledge as well as making sure that they're readable, and they have rich perspectives and foster curiosity. So it takes those rich books that we were using before, but now it gives that decodable piece.
What does it mean when you say something's decodable? What exactly does that?
So that means a child can use their phonics skills to tap out a word, blend it, and read it. They're not
They have
guessing,
dyslexia.
they're not looking at a picture, even if you don't have dyslexia.
Oh, okay.
Because here's I'll just say this quickly, but here's something that happens. A lot of kids who come from rich vocabulary families, they've gone on lots of experiences, their parents have read to them, they seem like they catch on to reading earlier, or they catch on to reading quickly. But what happens if you don't have a phonics background, when words become multisyllabic and there are no more pictures and you don't have a strong background, all of a sudden you start to struggle in third grade because you can't figure out how to decode that word. You can't figure out how to break it apart. And also you'll see it transition into spelling. Like all of a sudden my spelling's horrible. So having all kids learn to read through phonics and phonemic awareness, the understanding of sounds, you're guaranteeing a better success long-term in reading, comprehension, fluency, and writing. But the dyslexic child cannot learn to read without it. Okay. So, GEODS. Ready? GEODS comes, you'll get out at every grade level, K through 2. It's all of your phonics skills are supposed to be kind of under your belt for learning how to read by the middle of second grade. And Foundations kind of stops then. We've stretched it out a little bit, and we'll stretch these decodables out to match. So it's a K through 2 program, and the K program is very fascinating. There are 48 books. I love the way they introduce reading to kids. They start with books that are, and I'll leave these for you guys to look at, but it starts in kindergarten with no words. They're just pictures, so you get the kids to talk about it. But the great part is then in the back of all the picture books or the wordless books, gives you more information about the story. So they're actually going to learn about Pele and what he did. So the kindergarten books are all designed to be about giving that rich content while still being appropriate. So it starts off with the picture books, and then it goes to sound finding books, and that is when they actually just, again, they're going to take a really rich book because this is about the Andes, but they're only going to be looking for pictures that start with the letters that we teach in Foundations. And the dots are what the teacher reads. So you're building that rich context, but you're having them do appropriate phonics work within the book. And then the next phonics book in kindergarten, where they've actually now learned some basic decoding skills, it's designed for teacher and student, and I love these books, they're fascinating. But it'll have a triangle, I don't have the right one on me. Yeah. So it has a triangle, and the triangle's what the child reads because those words are taught. Those words are words they can decode and sound out, and then it has the circle for the rich content for the teacher. So you're doing two things at once in these books. So then first grade, it just transitions to all decodable books, and it again follows that Foundations model. It's both fiction and nonfiction. And then in second grade, it gets more to that independent reading so that they now have enough phonics background and phonemic background that they can build their stamina in reading and really get into rich text. And then the other part of it that I really think is great is they have all the books then in this format, which is the black and white format, that can go home with parent tips on this is what we're doing, this is what we read, this is how you practice. So our proposal is we think we have found rich text that is decodable for students, that matches our Foundations program, and we would like to buy them for every grade level. So this is our solution.
We've done a lot of research, and it will be our recommendation at the next board meeting to have this, which is a larger ticket item than, a normal run-of-the-mill, say, class set of books. And so I thought because it is a larger ticket item, prudent to have Angie present, and then you all, if you're amenable to it, approve it at the next board meeting. And then if there's any questions about it, either now or between now and the next board meeting, you can email and ask, or now.
The teachers have been using these in the
No,
classroom?
we haven't used them.
At all?
They're very expensive, so we haven't used them.
Have they looked at them?
Oh, yeah.
And do they like them?
They do. Now, I would not say every teacher has looked at them. The committee, my dyslexia committee, has looked at them, that has a teacher representative from every grade level.
Yeah.
Yes, they really like them.
So I mean, you said on there it'd be like 6 copies of each book with so many titles. How many years do you think they last? I'm just curious.
They're, I don't know that question. I could ask the company, but they are, like, I'll leave them for you guys to look at, but they're real waxy. They're sturdy.
So knowing like the books that you have right now, you're talking many years.
Yeah, I was the principal at Stevenson for 8 years, and I brought with me the DRA. No, I brought with me Fountas and Pinnell. You had DRA. I brought with me Fountas and Pinnell, and they still look great. So that's been 8 years.
Would they have, if this is approved, is it paying for, like, would they have options for, like, replacements of a book?
Yes.
per se?
Yes,
Maybe-
you don't have to buy the whole kits. They do, you can buy individual titles.
Okay.
Mhm. But it's through the Wilson Language, is who does foundations, and then this company is called Great Minds.
Do you know if the library has any corollaries that parents would be able to use over the summer, by chance?
These have only been published, their copyright date, they have not been out very long, so no, I don't think the library will have. Now, the library has decodables, by pattern, but not this exact series.
Yeah, I wonder, do we have a relationship with the library where we could, if we start using something like this, kind of
Oh.
encourage?
Ryan and I get along really well, yes.
So
I like that idea.
even if it's not necessarily that exact book, but that
Right,
style
that
of book,
style.
like,
Yeah.
like when graphic novels became the rage.
It's a great
the library
idea.
started carrying more.
It's a great idea.
Well, yeah, like they always have, I remember when the kids were little, they have those little plastic bins and it would be like, the letters, like it would be
Right, the
here's like.
take-home pack. or
Yeah.
whatever.
Yes.
Exactly.
And Ryan and I are working on switching away from the letters
Yeah.
to decodable patterns.
Right.
That's a good.
I wonder if that even could be a foundation grant.
Oh.
Yeah, with the library, for sure. That'd be perfect.
That's good leadership.
I mean, that's the
work
kind of thing
already.
that they're wanting to do and support, I think.
Yeah.
That's great.
It's a great idea.
I'll reach out to him. Yeah.
That's, thank you for your leadership with already, like, before we even asked, you're like, I already have a good relationship with our community library. Thank you for being a leader and building that relationship.
They're great. That portable museum over there, without Ryan, the original was, no, we do not do those in school, and no, those will not leave our library. And you know how valuable the things are in there are.
Oh, and it shifts, it was just fish the last
Yes,
meet,
and
I didn't even notice that they
And
changed
he
it.
circulates it and changes it, and his relationship between Jessica and I Jessica Fields and I has really made that happen.
Mhm.
We're very lucky to have the Grandview Library.
Awesome.
Anything else?
No? Okay, thanks.
Thanks.
That's it for presentations for today. Okay, building department reports, anything to add to the attachments? No questions? Superintendent's report.
So I'm going to spotlight just a couple things. The first is, and I think we have some fifth graders, kids on the board here. The fifth and sixth grade, or fifth and sixth grade outdoor education camps are scheduled in the coming weeks, which is always a really exciting, fun time. I think without a doubt, as our seniors graduate and they reflect on their K-12 experience, that is always something that they remember. Wanted to mention again, in a remarkable way, our scholarship night, over $9,600,000 in scholarship, just an amazing amount of money. Our 108th commencement ceremony is scheduled for Sunday, May 28th at 11 a.m. Good to know. On May 2nd, the Stevenson Elementary Planning and Programming Committee held its first of a 3-day-long meeting with architects Perkins and Will. The next one is June 14th and August 10th. Our first meeting went very well, which is an exciting process. I think everybody knows that we continue to have street work on Fairview. And if you haven't seen that site plan, it's really coming together. I do know Chris Dice took updated drone footage today, and I'm hopeful that maybe we could send that to the board tomorrow, because that's a great way to see the site plan. And then we continue to work on our strategic planning process, and at our next board meeting, we'll have a presentation about that to the board. Finally, I just want to say, and this is a little hokey, there's a lot of moms in the room and to-be moms, and I just want to say happy early Mother's Day. I hope that you're able truly to just be able to do what, because this never happens to moms, just do whatever it is that you want to do. That's my gift to my wife.
Soccer tournament?
That'll be a
That's
soccer
right.
tournament.
Yeah, right,
Exactly what I
that's
wanted
the
to do.
reality. I said, Debbie, my wife Debbie, I said, listen, whatever it is you want to do, that's what I want for you on your day. So hopefully I'll be successful. And I hope that you all get to do that as well. This doesn't sound like it, but,
It's being a mom, I guess, you know?
Oh, yeah.
but anyway,
there.
in a heartfelt
Right,
way,
right.
happy early
It
Mother's
might
Day.
storm, we'll be there.
I was like, I'll be in Cincinnati at a soccer tournament, so.
Yep, 'tis the season. Thank
No,
you,
it's
Andy.
fun, though. That's what he likes doing.
Exactly.
Exactly.
It's like, well, that's really like celebrating being a mother is just like basically your whole weekend is driven by their activities. It's like, that's what it is. So it's all good.
It's all good.
I will say this one, there's nothing that makes you happier as a mother than seeing your child happy.
That's true.
So it's
Yeah.
like,
That's
let's go,
true.
let's do it, kid.
Yeah, that is true.
That's such a mom statement.
It's such a mom statement.
It
I'm gonna
is,
do
though.
nothing. We don't do soccer in our
Well,
house.
at the end of the soccer games, we're gonna go to dinner. Like, I'm certainly not
yeah.
making it.
Yeah. No, no cooking.
Gotta be
So-
something
so-
at the end.
So, yeah. So we're all clear.
That was a good aside, Andy.
Anyway, construction. It looks like we have Colleen here.
Yes.
Not Jay. We don't get to heckle Jay tonight.
I know. I am your Jay Tadina for the evening. So I would like to see that drone video for sure, or even if you just go up on the second floor. I popped up there before I came down to the meeting today. You can really start to see everything come into focus, which is really exciting. Some accomplishments for us out on our part of the construction site. Probably in the past month, you've seen the underground storm. The majority of that is complete, along with the electrical conduit. The bases of all the light poles are installed. And we've started site concrete. So we're starting kind of towards the front of the building here. That galvanized cylinder in the ground is where your flagpole is going to be. So right as you walk out, you see that orange fence. That's right where the flagpole will be. And as of this week as well, there's big squares that are kind of randomly out in the field. That is where the playground is going to be. That's the playground foundations. And those went in this week. So upcoming, you'll see more site concrete continue as we work on the sidewalks. And then after that, the turnaround, which you can see the curb is already in there. The asphalt base will start to go in for that. The goal is like by the end of the month for that area, as well as working on what will be like the basketball court area. On the other side, also get some asphalt. And then once school is out for summer, which is hard to believe that it's already almost here, just a couple of weeks, that parking lot on Oakland Avenue, so the old parking lot for the middle school, where we have the cones for the drop-off, that will go away as soon as like that Tuesday after Memorial Day. So we will keep the fence as it is until then, and everything, so that last day of school and last day for teachers kind of remains as the status quo. But then as soon as Tuesday hits, we'll have the fence contractors back on site to kind of remove that, and that parking lot will go away because it's getting shortened. And then part of the grass will be half of that. Some additional electric and storm work that'll happen, but that all gets turned over with the rest of the project at the end of the summer here. Might also see topsoil on site,
So continuing to coordinate with the school as far as coordinating with school schedules, and then also the city work in the road. So we're coordinating with them and their logistics as they change, and start to work on the remainder of Fairview. Any questions?
No, that's exciting to see.
I know,
Yeah.
we're almost there.
I know, I saw the fence, there's like the black fence. I actually drove up from First, and I was like the first time I've driven on that part of the road.
Yeah.
And yeah, it is amazing to see the fence right there by the old parking lot by First, and all I mean, you can see where the turnaround is gonna be right over here, the drop-off space. It's cool.
And you can see like the beginnings of 2 brick pillars. So that second brick pillar, there will also be fence on the school's property that will continue on Fairview Avenue.
Yeah.
So it was really starting to come together.
It is. It's exciting. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks.
The core team committee reports. I feel ill-prepared, honestly. Okay.
I brought up
Please
my
do.
notes.
Please do, Eric.
Yeah, and short notes for one of the meetings and long notes for the other meeting. We did talk for a long time about the site plan review, just make sure that we all understood what's going on with the shrubs and the trees and the fence and everything else. Getting ready and make sure that we are all good with the city. We talked about a grant that we had gotten for school safety for, I think it was $201,000, that will allow us to do things including cameras.
Was that the governor's grant? We did end up getting it?
There were like 3 different resubmittals, and we earned it the 3rd time.
It's another round of
Third time's a charm.
201,000. Yes.
Wow. Good job, Jim
He's
Buffer.
got extra one.
Yes.
I'll take it.
Good job, Jim Buffer.
Yes.
Thank you, Jim Buffer.
We had a little, I guess, hiccup with the track replacement. Thinking about as I guess they got further in, looking at what underground work had to be done with stormwater retainment, and the scope of when what happened to go on with that, and which could cause some delays in the project. That was a couple of weeks ago that we last met.
So primarily, just real quick, the D-rings, which are the edges or ends of the track, are going to be transformed into the track surface, along with like long jump, high jump, et cetera. In doing so, we didn't think we would have to put in additional drainage, but we are going to, which requires additional zoning permits and applications, and that hasn't been done. So in essence, we have a meeting Monday to make a final decision, but in my humble estimation, barring some sort of rabbit out of a hat kind of miracle, we are going to have to delay a year.
I think, and you were saying in part it's because of that, it ties into Columbus City instead of Grandview, so you sort of have to work with both the city of Columbus and with Grandview. The whole process is a little bit trickier than. Yeah.
So yes, I mean, I guess the good news is that it will allow for us to be really well planned with all alternates and communicative in advance, and have all of our permits and zoning approvals done well in advance.
So is that what's gonna have to take place before the actual construction?
Correct.
Is that that's the delay?
That is correct. Yeah, it's the best case scenario, you're looking at 6 weeks-ish. And even best case scenario, there's no guarantees that it will get approved or it won't. And in essence, we would be wiping out access for football and soccer in the fall.
Smart decision.
It's a bummer. Yeah. It's a bummer, but it's just a delay, not a.
It's the right call. It is
Yeah.
the right call.
You gotta do the right thing.
Yes.
I want to do it well.
Correct.
With more things.
So, a couple things related to the end of the building project. One is identified a need for an upgrade in the auditorium with the projector screen, and that putting everything together with the light bar and not blocking there's a case that we all agreed on to go ahead with a projector and a screen, which is a $46,000 upgrade, which we decided to take out of the PI fund.
No, I thought we reversed that decision. I thought we went back to doing construction, but.
So at the last meeting, we actually talked about moving it back to PI, I
Oh,
think is the
okay.
last. So initially, we were looking at the project budget to see if the construction project budget could absorb that. And so I think the decision that was made was to shift that to PI for now.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right, that's fine.
That's what my note said, anyway.
No, I'm sure I just.
I'll trust Beth. Let's see, we talked about this, the Fairview City project with the street going along. Some discussion about the HVAC, that in the buildings, and Train is the company that, they found some things that, were not done right. Things like not enough refrigerant. Also, things that when they did commissioning of the building, they didn't get everything. So.
Train found some things, or our facilities people found things?
The latter and our commissioning agent.
So the good news is that Train is on top of it, and looking at it and making things right. But we had some discussion on, like, how is it that there are multiple layers that we had missed all that?
And how it impacts the warranty, like at what date did the warranty did it kick in, like, should it be after all of these fixes are made before it's effective, you know what I mean? Because otherwise we.
And I, again, applaud all of the team, but I'm gonna give a quick shout out to Jim Buffer again. He really advocated for this, rightfully so.
Mm-hmm.
Sure. It would have been easy to just, well, it
fix
works.
it.
Right.
But to make sure it works right.
That's right. That's exactly right.
Definitely,
Extra step.
yeah, thing that it's hard to get right is everything with the functioning HVAC and balancing everything. Just a couple other things, more kind of, end of the project. One, just middle school gym floor. There was some damage caused by repositioning the bleachers. So also team is on that to see about fixing that. And then oddly found that in the end there were no functioning spigots for water at the exterior of the high school, which was a design flaw. And so at least when we last left it, they were looking at the most economical solution, but obviously you need some spigots for hoses and things like that.
Will that be an extra charge that we have to add?
Hopefully not.
Yeah, my sense is it will not.
Okay.
Apparently it was a design miss. That it wasn't that it was in the designs and not constructed, it was just not in the designs. There's some things that went away that weren't replaced. And then at the end, the last thing I had was we talked about some security cameras, and Chris had some thoughts on making sure that we had a camera that would oversee the playground. And needed to do that before all the, just with making sure the conduit was put in for the electrical connection that had to be done ahead of time, or else it would be a lot of more money with rework later.
For the video cameras, do those run 24 hours? Yeah.
Currently what we have them set up as are, it's 24/7 and it's 30 days retention.
And I will just add, and maybe this is not surprising to any of you, but the clarity of the video is really strong, really good.
Good. Do administrators in the individual schools have access to it? So if
Yes.
there's an incident on the outdoor learning space or
Yes.
something, they would be able to
100%.
immediately?
100%.
Cool. That's good. I think it makes sense to have one on the outdoor learning space then.
Did I miss anything?
No, that was really well
No,
done.
No, sounds good. Any questions? Any more questions? No? Okay, then I think we are moving on to treasurer's presentation.
So it's hard to believe that we are 10 and a half months into the fiscal year and starting to get ready to kind of wind things down. But I wanted to give some financial updates where we stand at the end of April. Taxes, we received our final settlement. This is nothing new from last month. We're a little over what the fiscal year projections were. One thing I'm going to talk a little bit about here in a few minutes is the 5-year forecast, and a couple reasons why that the taxes ended up being a little bit above what we budgeted. So I'll give a little bit more explanation in just a couple minutes. State funding is right on track. That's very predictable. We have received what we have expected. The homestead and rollback from that first half settlement was still pending as of the end of April. We have since received that, and that is also very, very predictable. The Grandview Yard settlement, we did get the first week of April, so that first half TIF settlement from that property tax distribution. And so for the fiscal year, we are about 10.8% over what we had projected. And the reason for that is because our current 5-year forecast before the updates tonight was using projections from last year, from 2022. And as the Finance Committee recently reviewed updated 2023 projections, and there were a number of reasons why those numbers went up. So that is why that is over what we had projected as well. So I'll talk a little bit more about that here in a moment as well. So interest for the month continues to be strong, a little over $48,000 in our general fund. So that has really, the increase in interest rates has really helped our general fund financially. Expenditures, we can't get any closer to our budget than this. 10 months into the year is 83.3%, and our general fund expenditures are 83.3% of our budget. So exactly what we expect at this point. The investments, Star Ohio is up to 5.07% as of the end of April. It has creeped up a little bit higher than that, even in the last couple weeks. So we continue to take advantage of those interest rates. The U.S. bank account, the average yield is just over 2.5, and again, that just has a little bit of a time lag behind the liquid account, the Star Ohio account. The U.S. bank account will lag. We'll see that continue to increase, but there's a lag because of the term of those investments. Permanent Improvement Fund. So Eric mentioned the auditorium projector and taking that out of the Permanent Improvement Fund. So that unencumbered fund balance is a little bit lower than what it was last month. We do, as of the end of April, did still have that homestead and rollback settlement pending, which we have since received. So as of today, that number is the 73 and the 28. So that is a little bit higher. So the upcoming expenditures, we've talked about so the amounts listed here are the remaining amounts that we have to pay. So Eric mentioned the cost of that. What's shown here is what is remaining on the price tag. So we have made a first installment payment. These are what are remaining. The construction fund, April is our last big interest month. $16,415 were the earnings in April, and almost all of that money is in Star Ohio. So we're really been taking advantage of that 5+% interest rate. So project to date, net of the fees, $1,968,000. Soft costs were at almost 89%, construction costs almost 94%. And as of the end of April, our fund balance was just over $4 million, and I have since issued a payment for a big chunk for retainage, close to $2 million. So I mentioned the interest earnings are going to be significantly less next month. That balance is down to just over $2 million. Investments, again, everything but one, as of today, one $200,000 maturity. One we just had mature a couple days ago. We have one more in June. Everything else is in our Star Ohio account. So the two other sources that we have right now, besides the $2 million in the project fund, is the $200,000 from the Education Foundation and the $367,000 from the city. So those are in a different pot, but that money will be used in these last few construction draws as the site plan is built out. And then I just wanted to switch gears, give a quick update, as I mentioned, on the 5-year forecast. The Finance Committee met last Tuesday, and we did review the forecast. So just a couple quick reminders that the forecast is something the Department of Education requires, but really more importantly, it's a tool for us to kind of monitor where we are financially, when we might need to look at levy cycles and those sorts of things. So it's really probably the most important tool we use to kind of monitor where our general fund is financially. So 3 years of historical data is included, 5 years of forecasted data. And as we've talked about before, it's really a snapshot in time. So just about the time it gets done, things will start changing that impact those numbers. And as I mentioned, the Finance Committee reviewed this on May 2nd. We met last week. So a couple uncertainties. Of course, the state budget is always an uncertainty. Our funding has historically been very consistent because we're on the guarantee. There is no guarantee, no pun intended, that guarantee will stay in place forever. So we do need to kind of be mindful of that. At some point, there is a possibility that could begin to phase out. But where we are now, the projections for the next 2 years are consistent, flat with where we are right now, which has been the case for at least the last 10 years. Labor negotiations is always an uncertainty, just because the current term goes 2 more years out. The 5-year forecast goes 5 years out, of course. And then the kind of another uncertainty, if you will, the pilots from the Grandview Yard. One thing that we just learned, the Finance Committee reviewing the projections a couple months ago, one thing that we just learned was one of the office buildings that had been projected to come online about now, the plans have of course changed with that. So, some changes for the good, some changes with things being pushed back, just with, with where we are, office space and those sorts of things. So, anyway, what I like to kind of focus on is what has changed in our forecast since the last version that was in October of last year. And there's really only 2 lines on this forecast. I highlighted them in yellow. If you look at your, if you were looking at the packet, the file that's in the packet, and it is the tax revenue and the Grandview Yard revenue. So our 2 biggest sources of revenue. The taxes I mentioned, last year we were relying on information that we had from that calendar year, from 2022. And with the property value updates for 2023, we had more new construction than what I had projected. I think we had about 1.3 million of new construction in the district, and that's non-Grandview Yard. And then we also had a little over $2 million in new public utility property value. So public utility property is taxed at the full tax rates, the full voted rates. And so that property generates almost 3 times what our residential property generates, just because the rate is so much higher. There are no reduction factors. The House Bill 920 does not apply to public utilities. So when there's a jump in that property, it's a significant jump in taxes. So plugging in those new values, the projections went up for the current year about $164,000, and plugging that in for the next 5 years, similar increases for each year. So that is good news, of course. And then the Grandview Yard TIF projections that I mentioned have increased. One of the reasons for that increase, I think we talked about a couple months ago, was the city's new bond levy. So with any new levy that goes into place in Grandview Heights, the money that comes from the yard on that new levy comes into the TIF fund. And of course, we get 45% of all the money that's in that TIF fund. So, so anyway, the increase from last November to now in our TIF revenue for this year, about $179,000. So two really, positive changes with our forecast. And those projections for the yard, of course, impact all 5 years too. So that I listed the increase just for 2023, but those increases play out the whole remaining forecast. So upcoming, this is not something in the forecast, but I just wanted to kind of mention this while we're talking about taxes in particular. The Franklin County property reappraisal is taking place right now. Those values will go into effect in 2024, January of 2024. And Auditor Stinziano has reported that countywide, he is expecting somewhere between 30 to 35% increase in property values. So we have not gotten any preliminary information yet, but watching that, fairly closely. The forecast that I have for tonight does not have a 30% increase in it yet. That's a larger increase than what I would feel comfortable putting in there until we see those results. So I've got a much more modest increase factored in. If the values did go up by 30%, of course the tax rates on all the voted levies roll back to generate about the same amount of money. The increase, though, would be realized on inside millage. So a 30% increase in property values in Marble Cliff and Grandview Heights would generate about another $440,000 in tax revenue each year. So that is not factored into the forecast where we are now. It will be in my next update once we see those actual results. So just thought I would mention that while we're talking about that, though. So just highlights real quick, kind of a snapshot view of the forecast overall. Very stable position. The financial position has actually improved for the two reasons that I just mentioned. The cash balance in year 5, the very last year, from November to now increased from $8.6 million to $11.3 million. So that's very, very positive news, of course. And again, it's the property tax revenue increase and the TIF revenue increase. And then our unreserved cash balance in that year 5 increased from 5.2 to about 7.8 million. So great news to share. Expenditures, we're right on track with those, so I made no changes to any of our expenditure projections. It's no surprise local revenue is largely what we rely on, 88% of our budget, and the property taxes, amount to 66%, and that Grandview Yard component is just kind of creeping up, and it's for the first time has hit that 20% mark of our overall budget. So salaries and benefits holding, flat at about 79%. And again, no changes on those expenditures because there really isn't any, I don't see any reason to change them. We're right where we projected to be. So really not much change on those other than the yard percentage creeping up a little bit. So that is in a nutshell what the forecast looks like, and that is on the agenda for approval for tonight. And then I'll be filing that with the Department of Education.
Beth, you mentioned that the negotiated agreement goes through 25.
Yeah.
But on here, you still have like increasing wages, so you're kind of predicting for, it's not like it flattens out.
Great question. Yes, you're exactly right, Kevin. So even though we don't know what those increases are going to be those last couple years, I typically use whatever, approximately what is in that third year, and carry that forward those remaining years. Yep, great question.
You do that for both labor unions across the board?
I do. Okay. I do it for all salaries. So whether it's both labor unions, administrators, for everybody, board members.
We don't see an increase.
Like we don't need to budget that. Yeah, we haven't voted our simple pay increase.
But, and then for like purchase services and supplies and stuff, you just have some kind of inflator built in, it looks
I
like.
do, so, obviously the two big ones, the salaries and benefits, purchase services is the next real, big line item there. And each year, what I do is go through and so I have a multi-year comparison of exactly what we have spent. And in purchase services, broken down between like 50 categories of purchase services. And so we can really kind of drill down, and so I don't apply 1% to that whole line item. I kind of drill that all the way down, and then, if it's an increase, for example, like in the lawn care contract that we did for the first time last year. So I would factor that in that line item.
Okay.
So I kind of look at every one of those line items individually, and there's some things that might be going up, some things that might be going down. We shifted some staff members, a year ago, some educational service center staff members, brought them in-house. So I factored, I factor those out and so on, so. Yeah.
Right, it's more involved.
Yeah, yep.
Have you, I don't even know if we've seen any revenue yet from Grandview Crossing, or when that will begin to be seen, or?
So I don't know the answer to that for sure. I don't have a significant increase projected. I have new construction projected each year in the forecast. When those values come in, I don't know exactly from the information that I get from the county how much of that is Grandview Crossing yet.
Right.
But I can find that. I can find that out.
Wow.
So I think probably part of that increase may have captured a little bit of that, but with the, kind of the time lag on when that stuff comes on, I don't think we have.
Yeah, it's hard
most
for
of
me
it.
obviously it's coming along, but it's nowhere near finished, so it looks like, and it's sort of been a gradual process.
Is that supposed to be done in 2 years, 3 years, 5 years? Who knows?
I don't know for sure.
That's okay.
I'll find out.
Not a big priority, I'm just nosy.
Any more questions? Okay, Finance Committee report?
Go ahead, Mr. Bodie.
Well, we talked about the 5-year forecast, we talked about the food service fund, which I think is a point later. Is that right? Or is it-
Next, yeah, that's the very next thing.
That's the very next thing, so I won't hop on that yet. And then we had some good continued discussion that will eventually make its way here about capital financing options that we had a first round, this was a second round, but thinking about, with the next big project, including Stevenson, just kind of many options of how we might think about financing that, including working in things like the AEP money. So much more to come on that.
It's like you can't say a whole lot without just getting right into
Yes,
it.
yeah,
You covered
yeah.
that very well.
Anything else?
No, I think you did very well.
Just ongoing discussion.
Because we'll talk about school lunches next.
Right, so, yep, very next thing, first reading for a proposal on school lunch prices. Who wants to speak to that? Is Beth, or is it going to be a finance member?
So I'll just kind of start, and Eric and Molly, Andy, you guys can jump in. So as you guys know, we have been talking about different ideas for the food service fund and looking at staffing, looking at kind of when we started looking at staffing, one of the things that the Finance Committee asked was, can we kind of look more globally at the entire food service operation? So, how do our lunch prices compare to other similar districts? And how long's it been since there has been a lunch price increase? What about a la carte sales and the prices for those and so forth? So we have, over the course of the last several months, we have kind of, talked about all those things and trying not to look at just, one component of that kind of in a silo. So, so Kyle brought to us, I think a month ago, a proposal to increase type A lunch prices. And so he gave us some comparative data with some other schools. We don't know exactly how long it's been since the last lunch increase. We know it's been at least 18 years. There's been one increase. And so, so the Finance Committee talked about that on Tuesday. And so Eric, I don't know if you want to kind of add, one thing that we did in preparation to look at whether we need to increase lunch prices is kind of look at the projection of where the food service fund is now and where's it going to be in a year from now, 2 years from now, with a lunch price increase and without a lunch price increase. And so it really kind of came down to a financial analysis of, you know, how much do we project that we're going to lose, how much, you know, in that fund next year on its own as is versus with a price increase. And the increases that Kyle had recommended, 25 cents for the K3 and 50 cents for 412. So the prices listed for first reading here reflect a 25% increase K3, 50-cent increase 412. So it really came down to a financial, kind of a financial analysis of what that projection looked like.
I have a question.
Yeah.
So is the increase connected to the increase in food costs, or is it an increase to accommodate more fresh produce and home-cooked meals, like what the discussion has been?
Yeah, that's a really great question, Katie. So what I would say is that the lunch, so typically our food, with the exception of the last 2 years during COVID, when the federal government subsidized, 100% subsidized all breakfast meals and lunch meals, with the exception of those 2 years, every year our food service fund operates what we would call in the red, meaning it spends more to run the operation than what it generates in lunch fees to students and those subsidies from the federal and state governments. So, kind of to answer your question, absolutely the food costs we've seen the last couple years have really gone up. The lunch price increase proposed would not be to cover anything additional. It would not be to enhance the program. It's really just kind of helping us tread water to kind of minimize those losses so that they're not greater. As I mentioned, the prices have not increased in one time in at least 18 years that we know of. So it really is kind of to keep us where we're at and to try to minimize that loss, if you will, on an annual basis. The money that we did get during the last 2 years from the federal government subsidy of those meals is keeping us in the black this year. So we do not expect that we will need a transfer from the general fund, which has been historically done, and we don't expect that we will need one next year either. However, without the price increase, we're getting much closer to needing those subsidies again. So we're kind of like using up some of that cash balance right now that we built up from the large subsidy the last 2 years. So it would just kind of be to kind of keep the status quo.
Approximately how much were we subsidized prior to COVID and the federal school lunch price changes, or the way they subsidized it? How much approximately annually was the school district subsidizing?
It was anywhere between $40,000 to up to close to $100,000 a year. It kind of depended on the year.
Is that the food service fund? Is that like part of the budget? Like
So there is a lot. So the food service fund has its own fund completely separate from our 5-year forecast. It's what is referred to as an enterprise fund. Generally, the charges that are charged for the meals are intended to somewhat cover the cost of those. But what you will see in the general fund is a transfer line item of what we have typically done in the past. And so we take some money out of the general fund at the end of each year to kind of plug that loss.
Yeah.
And it's been anywhere between 40,000 and 100,000.
I just add, Beth, that if I wrote down the numbers right, that if we didn't make any change in the lunch prices, that the projection was that next year we would lose 83,000. And this year it's 44,000 loss, next year it'd be 83, so it'd be really growing. But with the extra money, if we do next month increase the prices, there would only be a $57,000 total loss. Which again, because we have a cash balance, that we don't actually need 57,000 from the general fund. But in a couple of years, you know, that will run out.
Yeah.
And then we would be in a position of, you know, either making big cuts or having big increases, or, you know, taking a 57,000 or so transfer every year.
When we also talked about the price increase, because this came with like, how this has been 3-4 months in the making before this, and we wanted to see how things were going once we opened the new building, things like that. We looked at other districts, and Grandview was one of the lower ones. And we decided to, or not we decided, it's the recommendation from Kyle, 25 cents and 50 cents, and it's still, we still will not be the highest in the area. We will be kind of in the middle. So it's, I mean, is comparison to what it is. I know that I said in finance, we wanted to do the first reading to make sure that we reach out to the community, because sometimes a quarter doesn't seem like a lot, but somehow all the quarters added up to $25,000-$30,000.
You got more kid, yeah, you got more than one kid, and if they buy, depending on how many days it
Well,
counts.
it's that, and it's, you know, we do have free and reduced lunch, things like that, and there are things, this also doesn't, with this price, it's your standard issue lunch, not the 3 bags of Cheetos that someone in my house buys every day. So it's kind of, it's reflective of what's going on, and I feel soundly that I could say this from the finance committee. We're both very supportive of it. We do want to do a first reading, get it out to the community, and come back, because if the, you know, money's tight, and that's partially why we're doing this. And we also talked about, you know, the value in not the value in subsidizing, different views in subsidizing from the food service to other, like how we do that, things that go on with funding. I don't think but we looked at it, Beth had, when she said, dug in, there was, you know, how many meals were served in October, how many things were this, and we talked about, are there other districts in Franklin County, bigger, smaller, whatever, do food services operate in the black? And it's, you know, if we wanted to close lunch, maybe we could. Is that something we don't want to do? There's a lot that a little change to the food service would change the culture of the schools. So it's, for us, we think that this is a good step to trying to maintain the quality that we have been given to our kids, and keeping up with everything without changing a whole lot. So it's kind of I don't want to say a smaller step, but.
So, those a la carte items that you mentioned, has the price of those, does anyone know, have those prices stayed the same over the years also, or have they been increasing while the type A lunch has stayed the same?
So the a la carte items are kind of up to Kyle's discretion to price, and I know as prices are going up in those, that he's evaluating, looking at increases in the a la carte as well. So I think, you know, he talked about, you know, one example is, you know, the price of a bag of chips. You know, a few years ago, he's making, you know, maybe 50 cents on a bag of chips, and now it's down to like 5 cents or 10 cents is what he's making on a bag of chips. So I'm not sure that he has made many adjustments yet, but he is looking at those to put those into effect too.
And why are they, I mean, I'm assuming it's the type of, or the amount of food rather, but why the price differentiation between the 3 schools? Is it because of what's included in a meal, or is there anything else?
Andy, do you know the answer to that?
I'm just curious, and why the difference, why only 25 cents for Stevenson versus 50 cents for the
yeah.
other two?
Yep.
I did quickly just here did the percentage, and it's like a 7.6% increase for Stevenson, whereas it's an over 15% increase for Larson.
Yeah.
I think it had, I'm like, I know we talked about this, and I could be wrong, but I think it had to do with the portion sizes and the varieties of things, because I believe
That's what I imagined, it was probably portions.
It was
but-
portion size, but it was also like the Stevenson lunch is a little less complex than middle school lunch, I believe.
I think there are a
Their
few
palates
less.
are more sophisticated, so they can handle better stuff.
I think there are less
It might have to do
options.
with the ability to cook. I mean, you can't
Like,
cook down
yeah,
at
sure.
Stevenson.
You can't, no, it wasn't the cook, I think it had to do with the type of meal that was prepared, if I remember right, in the complex, I'm making up words right now, complexity. The complexity, I made that one up, I got it back. But there was like with that, and there was something else where, because we asked this question, right now I'm just like, it's eluding me, and Kyle said blah, 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 and I was like, that makes perfect sense.
I think it is portion size and the number of different
Like
options
fruits-
that can.
fruits and vegetables,
Right,
things
so he
like
might
that.
have, for example, 3 vegetable choices
Yes.
for middle school and high school, and there might be 1 vegetable
I think
choice at
the other
Stevenson.
thing that he may have mentioned is, just like the discussion on the closed lunch, like if you have a whole lot of kids that basically have to eat there, there's a little more economy of scale.
Sure,
Yeah,
that
and
makes
if you're-
sense.
You divide.
The Stevenson kids can't
more.
go out, so
Right.
more of them are apt to get, yeah.
Right.
And I
That makes
believe it
sense.
was, them think about it, I'm like, I know it had to do with like the amount of options, like, you're not, Kyle talked about, choice paralysis, when you look at a 5-year-old and say,
Oh,
you
yes.
can have this,
Every time we go to a restaurant, they just sit
that
there
there
and
was, they don't have, it's not their palates, but
I
it's,
get
the choice paralysis.
Yeah, no,
And when he
makes
said it,
sense.
I was like, I have that problem at 42, so thank you. But there's, and the things, and I will say this again, from the finance committee, my head is off to Kyle, like the amount of things that he knows about children's palates, decision-making, and how to make all this run still blows my mind, and how much he cares about our kids and the lunches that they get. So with that, and, did that answer some of the question?
Yeah, it did.
Yeah.
And then I just wanted to be sure, then if someone is eligible for a reduced price lunch, there will be no change to the cost of that lunch as this increases, is that correct?
That is correct. So the federal lunch program sets the price. So if you qualify for reduced, it doesn't matter if you go to school in Grandview Heights or in California. The National School Lunch Program is a national school lunch program, and the price of that is set through that program, and then that's what that subsidy is based on. So for all the reduced price lunches, we charge 40 cents, and we get X dollars and cents from the federal government. So those two numbers are determined through the lunch program.
And the
Yeah.
other thing to note too, because I was like, don't worry, I asked that question. The lunches don't look different.
Yeah.
If you get a standard issue lunch, whether it's free or reduced, the children still get grapes that.
Right, but
It's
à la carte items are not like a part of that.
À la carte is not included.
That's
Right.
correct. Yeah.
But your standard issue lunch is the same.
Right. Well, and I know that we know that Kyle has had a really firm commitment to increasing the number of options and having healthier options and whatnot. I will say I'm a little bit, I can't help but be a little bit concerned about the optics of raising lunch prices and not having it tied to any kind of other initiative. But I understand, like, realistically, what's going on with our budget and that need and increasing food prices and stuff. But
I don't think Beth was wrong in saying it's kind of, status quo, but also the status quo is better now than
Yes,
it was
right.
even
That
at the
is,
beginning
that
of
that
this
is accurate.
year. So, yeah, with the move to the new kitchen especially, expanding options, more choices, better quality, making sure that, there's healthy options. So I think there has been.
Yeah, no, and
say
I
compared to a
agree.
year ago, it's a higher quality.
And I think, I know I try to remind like fellow parents and stuff, when you look at I mean, you don't really have a reason to go look at the school lunch menu anymore,
I
but
don't anymore.
when you
I
go
remember
look it
Bosco
up,
sticks.
there's like the
Oh, yeah.
standard menu, but then there's also a separate link that you have to click on that says daily offerings. So yeah, you look at the like standard lunch, it's like, okay, today we're having, I don't know, like
Bosco
hamburger
sticks.
or pasta, and Bosco's like, but then it's like your daily offerings, and it's like the hummus plate, the salad, the chicken wrap, and those are like daily offerings. So it is, I mean, I think people who say, yeah, like that those options are out there.
The other thing that I would add is this was one of the two of us, when we were talking about food services from the finance perspective, asked, is it time for a price increase? Not based on, based on a long conversation, but this was a direct, one of us, both of us, were like, is it time to look at this? And this is also why I think it's important to have the first read and then the second read, so people can come and say, why are we doing this? And
Right.
the simple answer is, you know, this doesn't sound the best, but I'm like, it's time. And it's with everything going on, price of food, things like that, wanting to keep up, this is our response. So it's not, if we don't approve it, it's not that things necessarily are gonna go downhill, but our
No.
food service, we're gonna be.
The likely result is that
We're gonna be
the rest of the
subsidizing.
school budget has to absorb more of.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
It's not, the food, I don't think anyone sees school food as a money maker. Like, that's never the intention of school food. Best case scenario would be a break even, but even that.
right, and it's, you know, this has come out of, like, I jokingly said to Mr. Bodie, I was like, 3-4 months have we been talking about food service, maybe 5? Yeah. So, it's been a long discussion to get here.
And as you mentioned, recommended.
Recommend.
This very much, I think both of us are very comfortable with the recommendation.
All right, well, we will vote on this in June, I take it then. Any other questions?
Now, a simple comment though, thank you for Kyle for all the work that he's put in, and Beth has prepared an amazing, like, spreadsheet with the cost and where we look at in projections, and if we do this and if we don't do that, and it made for, I think, a lot easier decision from the finance committee to put it forward. So, thank you for your hard work also.
I'm sorry, I was still thinking there for a minute. I'm sorry, I'm not ready to walk away from it, I guess, yet. One more question. You know, especially for high schoolers, because they can choose to leave the school, is there a concern that, you know, by increasing the price of a school lunch, that you will, you know, the almost not encouraging, but, you know, that more people might choose to leave school for lunch as the price increases there?
Not at this price.
I was like, I don't.
Yeah, because I
mean, they're
know there's no
walking-
lunch outside of the school that's
Not
gonna
even the
cost less than
DK
that,
could match
but-
that unless you just got one pint pancake, you know? So Chipotle, Chick-fil-A, where they go, it's all $12 to eat.
It's crazy.
Yeah. And they're not looking at the price. So, I mean, to be fair. So, it's a valid question, but I
Yeah.
don't think that.
Okay, all right. Now we're going to move on, recommended for approval. We have items D1 through 7.
So moved.
Second.
Are there any comments, questions? Okay, Beth, please call the roll.
Mr. Bodie?
Aye.
Mrs. Gephardt?
Aye.
Mr. Gousset?
Aye.
Mrs. Matney?
Aye.
Ms. Wassman?
Aye.
Okay, moving on to personnel, we have 1 through, gosh, 19. Okay, I have a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Any questions, comments?
These were, some of these were updated just like in the last day, is that right?
Yeah,
I think.
the ones that were added, are the,
Two.
number 2.
Number 2.
The one-year contract, they recently offered
Yeah.
and accepted in the last 24 hours.
Yeah.
You're a busy lady.
Tina Brand is a busy lady. Let me tell you.
May I, thank you for all the work that you do. May I ask, are we close to fully staffed? Am I in the wrong spot?
No, go ahead.
Okay. Are we close to being, like, are we 70-80% fully staffed for what we expect? Like,
Yeah, we're in good shape.
That's what.
At this point in the
Okay.
year. Now, I feel like I've said this every year at this May board meeting. And
Yeah.
inevitably, something happens between now and July 10th or after July 10th to change that.
We've never not
But
had
at this
change.
point, I think we have a special ed teacher to hire and a parapro. 2.
Have you filled the middle school spot?
Mm-hmm.
It's on there. It's on here?
No, there always will be someone in August.
Yeah.
That's how it goes.
Right.
But just
Oh, there she
to be.
Thank you.
Anything
Thought
else?
I read it closely.
Okay, Beth, call the roll, please.
Mr. Bodie?
Aye.
Mrs. Gephardt?
Aye.
Mr. Gousset?
Aye.
Mrs. Matney?
Aye.
Ms. Wassman?
Aye. Okay, it looks like under policy, we just have the committee report. Is there one?
No,
Okay, how about teaching and learning?
no.
Okay, but we do have 2 things to vote on there. Which one is very exciting? The roster of candidates for graduation. Calendars, always exciting. I always remember Jesse Truitt would always point out the roster of graduates and just how important it is. So following in his footsteps, say it is very exciting for all these families and students. Anyway, is there a motion to approve these?
Yeah, so moved.
Second. Go ahead.
Are there any comments or
Yes.
questions?
On the 2024-25 school calendar, on the sidebar, it lists January 5th as a teacher workday, but it should say January 6th.
The 5th is a Sunday?
The 5th is a Sunday.
Under which year?
2025.
We need to put
Oh.
Kevin on the calendar committee. He is like a calendar
It just says it right there. It says
juggernaut.
5th, and it should be 6th. It's
I know
colored
she
correctly.
doesn't, but I'm telling you, Kevin has caught all of these. He is like a wizard. 2024, no, 2025, 2026.
No, it's the 24-25.
Okay, sorry. The 2024, 2025, January 5th should say January 6th as a teacher workday.
Like on the sidebar.
Is
Yeah.
it,
And I think we can do this, although I'm asking, not telling. I recommend we note that in the agenda and go ahead and vote, and we'll make the change.
So like
As
the
opposed
little-
to kicking
yeah.
this
It's
to
just
next.
that little
It's
legend
just a
kind of
little
thing.
legend
just a
thing
little
on the
legend
side.
thing.
The actual calendar, like, is correct.
Yes.
It's just the
Just the
little
Yeah,
legend
correct.
inside, yeah.
Right.
It just says January 5th,
if
and it
we-
just needs to say January 6th. But I think we note it and vote on it, as long as you all are supportive.
100%.
And we'll update it accordingly.
Would we say that, because the motion was seconded, that it's with this addendum change? Or it's not actually affecting the calendar?
Correct. It's,
Okay.
it's,
With that
it's,
correction,
it's
yeah.
just a clerical error.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, now with that correction, thank you, Kevin. Any other comments? Okay, Beth, please call the roll.
Mr. Bodie?
Aye.
Mrs.
Aye.
Gephardt? Mr. Gousset?
Aye.
Mrs. Matney?
Aye.
Ms. Wassman?
Aye.
Congratulations, graduates.
Yeah. The class of 2023.
All right, now moving on to co-curricular activities and extracurriculars. We have under recommendations for approval 1 through 4.
So moved.
Second.
Any comments or questions? Seeing none, Beth, will you please call the roll?
Mr. Bodie?
Aye.
Mrs. Gephardt?
Aye.
Mr. Gousset?
Aye.
Mrs. Matney?
Aye.
Ms. Wassman?
Aye.
Okay, it looks like have to have the special recommendation for a special meeting for Andy and Beth's evaluations. Is there a motion?
So moved. To have the meeting?
Yes.
Yeah.
So I'll second.
So it would be right before the regular June meeting,
Right.
similar to how we've done that in the past.
I believe Haley has already sent us meeting invitations. We already should have them on our calendar. This is just the formality.
Have we voted to have this special meeting, or have we announced it? So, for me, I'm like, I don't feel like we voted on it.
It's not required.
Okay.
I don't
But
think we've sent
it's-
the announcement either, but we will.
No, you've got a calendar invite, but we've not sent an announcement.
Right, I
Right.
don't remember us ever voting on
Right.
this.
So we don't,
Okay,
have
that was all.
it doesn't have to
So
be
do we
on
not
here.
need, do we not vote, because it says recommendations for approval, I assumed we were voting on it here, but.
It's on here
For
to
that.
vote,
Well, since we have a motion and a second, we might as well vote
Yeah.
on it, but.
so just kind of putting it on the record here is
Yeah,
what we're
yep,
doing.
definitely.
if I vote no, I don't have to show up? I seconded, I have to vote yes.
Is that a rule? If you second something, do you
I
have to vote
believe
yes?
so.
Really?
I believe
I didn't know
Mr.
that.
Roberts
I
says
thought that was
yes.
just putting it up on the floor, but anyway, I'm sorry. Beth, please call the roll.
Mr. Bodie?
Aye.
Mrs. Gephardt?
Aye.
Mr. Gusset?
Aye.
Mrs. Matney?
Aye.
Ms. Wassman?
Aye.
Okay, we do have one topic for discussion. Molly, would you like to speak to it?
I would. I will pass these this way. I am putting forward a resolution for House Bill 1 and the backpack bill. So I have, what I'm passing out is the background rationale, kind of what's going on in the Ohio State House and kind of how it affects our district. Did everyone get one? Nope, I didn't do, I did. I can't do this in my classroom correctly, but I can do it well here. And then I have a resolution that goes on with it. I move the, how do I want to, now I'm forgetting Robert's. I was like, I move to put forward this resolution. I need a second before we can discuss it.
I'll second.
Okay. If you could pass this. So it's done in two different ways, the background and then the actual resolution itself. Do you need to take a minute to read? There's a lot of information there before we move forward with discussion. I'm assuming we're reading. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Let's take a minute. Are we ready to discuss, or is everyone still absorbing?
This is just back, this is not part of the, this is not part of the.
Good question from Kevin. The background rationale is not a part of the resolution.
So would that, so when we vote on this, we are not, and we're not like voting on that, and that wouldn't be like sent to the
This is the only thing that,
okay.
the rationale is where this information is coming from, the background of it. Where it says resolution expressing support to full, after that is what would be the resolution itself.
Well, first of all, thank you for putting this together. Good explanation, as well as, I know there's a lot of work and kind of coordinating with everybody else who's involved and staying on top of it. And really appreciate too, I know work done since the earlier versions that were much longer and
got
a little
streamlined.
convoluted. Yeah, streamlined. This is a much better, so I appreciate that. I think, I know that's an effort to edit and pair, but I think you did a good job, so thank you for that.
No, thank you for the feedback. I tried to keep this as, because there was an earlier version, as streamlined, as direct as possible without getting overly worded, overly too much in my own feelings about things. But I believe the resolution is very straightforward. I'm also open to feedback, anything else from other board members.
Does this backpack scholarship, or let me say this, does the voucher is used for all private schools. Could this hurt any family who have kids with special needs who can't be in a public school? Or are we required to accommodate all children who wouldn't have to leave because of a disability?
Tell me if I'm wrong here, if we cannot provide, I was like all the experts in the room, if we cannot provide a fair and appropriate education for a student, then the district takes the cost to educate that student outside. Like if we can't meet their needs and they have to go to Amazing Academy, Grandview Heights School District already pays that bill. That's not a voucher. A voucher is when there's, you can get vouchers for the grade. We have, for the grade card, if you have a grade D, or no, it's now stars. If you don't have a certain amount of stars, you can get a voucher, and then you can go to a private school, things like that. But it's not Grandview Heights not meeting the needs of a student. That's at the cost to us, and we do pay it full freight, correct?
Yes.
Oh, that was one word answer from you, Andy. I got it. Yes.
The point.
I just want to live right here in this moment.
There is currently a scholarship program specifically aimed at special education students, the John Peterson Scholarship. And I don't know enough about this bill to know if they were saying that this would kind of replace all other like Ed Choice or whatnot, or if this is just another thing that gets added to all those other things.
I believe this enhances Ed Choice.
Yeah.
So part of this with Ed Choices, the voucher, and partially why I feel this is important, they keep growing the voucher program, and education is getting cut, or the state funding is getting cut. So if we can keep the money in our public schools and support them, then we don't need vouchers to go to other schools.
How many kids in our community use vouchers?
Yeah, so, it's a different way to say it, and I don't have my figures with me, but, you're talking about hundreds of millions of dollars through increasing as a result of this bill from public education in Ohio being moved to private schools. And in the form of it, whether it is an online school, whether it is Watterson, whether it is Wellington, both the amount and eligibility has significantly increased to offset a family's choice to choose to send their kid to a different school. Interestingly, and very uniquely, even compared to Bexley, for example, or Upper Arlington, for example, the number of students that we have choosing to go to a private school that live in Grandview, even as a percentage of the whole, is ridiculously small. Uniquely. Now, there are school districts, in particular like in the Cleveland area, where there are a lot of Catholic schools that are within the boundaries of a public school, where this is going to cause significant disruption financially and from an enrollment standpoint to public schools. I'm sure also in a larger school district, potentially as well. I think maybe big picture, it's about whether you believe that the pillars on which public school was founded and how it should be funded, or private schools could do it better. I'm not trying to get into a debate, but in essence, this legislation and this bill, through allocation of resources strongly, is saying that private schools, or maybe differently, families ought to have a choice to send their kids to private schools, and we ought to offset that cost.
And the other thing that goes with it, while we have a small number, like Grandview is unique that we don't have the voucher problem that other school districts do. Partially, my thinking is, I'm like, where does this stop? Like, this isn't something that's a big ticket here, but we are stewards of public education. We stand up and support public education. We do it one of the best across the board. This is money that could be put into public education that's being taken away. So while this isn't necessarily something that we're losing $2 million, we're losing $200,000, we're elected to support public education in Grandview, and I'm a little bit on my soapbox, but I'm like, this is something that is undermining public education in our state with a political agenda, and I feel it's important that we, as elected community members, on behalf of our district, say, this is not acceptable.
And just, either Molly or Andy, just for the record here, the statewide organizations, BASO, WASBO, I
All
think
of
have
them.
taken a pretty strong stand on this.
I want to say all the acronyms in education are in support of
public
where.
education.
In public education. Yeah, you're right. I needed that qualifier.
100%.
There's not an entity that's like, this is good for education. This is good for public education.
Right.
And then with House Bill 1, as Beth said earlier in this thing, like, we are on a guarantee, but there's no guarantee that we'll have a guarantee. If House Bill 1, and how that is written, that could drastically affect our funding, how we do future funding, K-12,
Isn't
everything.
House Bill 1 being voted on like today? Or like it's happening now?
It was,
I thought.
it's on
It could be why our elected
Well,
official wasn't able to be here.
I think that was because of the resolution to move the vote from November to August.
Oh,
So
yeah,
that's
yeah.
what's going on today. But I know this, I mean, House Bill 1 is
is-
like one of the
Oh, gosh,
first
yeah.
ones.
Oh,
So-
yeah. Oh, boy.
Yes.
I would say, honestly, if I'm looking at that is the third one down. Hang on. To me, I think it is, because so there's been a lot of movement because there's a deadline with this. I don't think it is quite there yet, but to your point, I'm like, it could be there. I still feel it's important to put forward this
Sure.
because
No, I
the
think you
other-
make a really valid point.
the other thing is I think House Bill 1 may or may not get passed, but we're gonna see House Bill 1's friend. And to me, the important thing is the way that these bills will drastically and have the potential to decimate public education, and I feel we need to stand up and say, not
Stake in
today.
the ground, yeah.
And the way that, to Eric's point, because this is a lot more concise than it used to be, it is very general, and it's not as, I want to say, as wordy as it was. And so, to me, I think it important that we do say, no, thank you, politely.
I just checked, and House Bill 1 is still in committee, so if anything, it was maybe being voted on by a committee, but it has not been reported by the committee to the full chamber for a vote. I would be surprised
That's right.
if it is without massive changes.
Yeah.
And I would say too, like, the idea of a backpack voucher has been around for 15 years, at least, since it started with, like, Vouchers in Ohio started in Cleveland, and it was only Cleveland. And then it very slowly creeped into, like, whether or not you were in a failing school district academically. And then it was like income, then there was an income basis, and it's just gotten a little bit bigger and a little bit bigger. But as she says, I think in her rationale, it's like, these private schools are not held to the same standards as a public school, but taking public money, and that is problematic. I feel hopeful that neither of these two specific bills are gonna go anywhere, Because I think in the end, when you see what it will do to a district like Columbus or Cleveland, that's hard for any legislative leader to really stomach, but it is always possible. So I do think, when it comes to public education, like that, it's good to take a stand against voucher programs where they're not held to the same standards as public education.
The other thing too, though, it's not only, they've tied it to report cards. We have a great report card now. If they change the report card standards.
Yeah.
What happens if we do the same level of excellence, but the metric is changed? Our students are now held to this test score as opposed to that test score and test score, anyway, I'm not going there. But there's a lot of things that could change, and I'm putting forward a resolution rather than just writing a letter on my behalf. I as constituent school board member carry certain weight. Us five standing up and saying, this is how we feel, we put it in writing, here's our resolution to be directed to these people listed, has a little bit more weight, and I think it is more important to have the five of us in solidarity stepping forward and making our voices heard. But I also, we've watched over the last, vouchers, as Emily said, 15 years it was a Cleveland problem. It is here.
Yeah.
It's a low number, but it's here. And the vouchers are at full state funding, and we get 1,500. It's not this. Let me not even get into numbers. A student would get more state funding to use a voucher than we would receive for our students here. So they're not held to the same. I'm not going to go any more into vouchers, but this is why I put it forward. So
Great.
Yeah, and also all private schools, they don't even have to accept a voucher, so, that's probably why we don't see a lot of Grandview kids using vouchers, because the schools that they're going to probably don't even take vouchers, but.
And they don't have to have certificated educators. Did I say that already?
Oh, like charter schools?
Whoever, vouchers or non-public, so private and parochials, I have to have my license renewed, I have to have continuing things. They don't necessarily have to have the same licensure. I couldn't come up with that word. That
At private schools?
they don't have to, but they still can receive state funding.
Oh.
There's
But charter schools are public schools, so they're different.
Yeah.
That's an actual public school, but different. No,
There's a whole lot to unpack.
Yeah, it's a
Yeah.
lot.
So, I was like, I think I've said my case as thoroughly as I can get without.
Do we need to vote on this?
Yeah.
I would like us
So
to.
is this gonna go up for vote? Okay, all right, so, I'm sorry, did we,
Been
we
moved
had
and
a,
seconded.
It's
and has already been moved and
So
seconded.
now we would do the so approved. or not
Okay,
approved.
so no more questions, comments by anyone? Okay. Beth, please call the roll.
Mr. Bodie?
Aye.
Mrs. Gebhardt?
Aye.
Mr. Gousset?
Aye.
Mrs. Matney?
Aye.
Ms. Westman?
Aye.
I got one there.
I appreciate it.
Good work, Molly. All right, thank you. No, thank you all for going down this path with me.
Okay, and I think I forgot, we actually have to close this meeting out.
Okay.
Okay, is there a motion, I'm sorry, don't believe, there is no reason to have executive session today, so, is there a motion to adjourn the meeting?
So moved.
Second.
All right, Beth, please call the roll.
Mr. Bodie?
Aye.
Mrs. Gebhardt?
Aye.
Mr. Gousset?
Aye.
Mrs. Matney?
Aye.
Ms. Westman?
Aye.
All right.
Thank you.
And always, it's there, better.